I know last time we did an interview was right before the session was beginning in the last year, and you were saying that you were hoping that it would kind of be a little slower because it was only a 30-day session.
Well, you know, I guess thankfully we did have that opinion because we did, like I said, we left a lot of bills. There were a lot of House members that were upset with the Senate because they passed bills that we didn't pass. We just simply ran out of time, and the volume was just too high. So, and that's the Senate's job. You know, the House is, you know, there's 100 members in the House, and they crank out a lot of legislation. And in the Senate, there's only 38 of us, and our job is to slow down the process, be very deliberate. And, you know, it's exciting to work with, you know, outstanding young people like Chad McCoy. You know, I had a lot of conversations with Chad, and you know, Chad passed some major legislation along with Brandon Reed that you know, I saw both of them on a regular basis along with Kim King and Daniel Elliott, and and then James Allen Tipton from Spencer County and Kevin Bratcher from Jefferson County. I have 5 state reps that are represented that I have, you know, represent the counties that are in my Senate district. So I work closely with those state representatives, and they were a joy to work with. And they're, you know, the counties are really fortunate to have dedicated people like them representing them. So they did a good job. I was very pleased to work with them, and they did a lot of lobbying for their bills to pass the Senate. It was always good to see them. One bill that one of the bills that, you know, later in the session we talked about those at another interview, those that we passed early in the session, but House Bill 520, charter schools, is probably one of the bills that probably was the most debated during this latter part of the session, and that bill simply allows for charter schools to be set up in Kentucky. I think 43 other states have charter school legislation. And there was a lot of concern, Gary, that there'd be charter schools spring up all across the state, and it would take money away from the public schools. But, you know, I don't think we'll see in Marion, Washington, or Nelson County, I don't really foresee us ever having a charter school because the reason for charter schools is primarily the schools across the state that are failing schools. We call them priority schools in Kentucky. But that's primarily what a charter school does. It really throws out a lot of the rules, and I guess in other states where kids primarily in urban areas and low income parts of the city that especially large minority populations, that charter schools have worked very well to I guess reduce that that gap between the achievement gap, and that's primarily what charter schools are for. Even though charter schools could be set up, you know, there's an agreement, you know, agreement to where, you know, school districts like our counties could collaborate to open a charter school through a inter-county collaborative or an agreement, and they could set up a charter school. You know, I guess, like I said, Marion and Washington could get together and set up a charter school of sorts. But again, I don't look for that to happen. One of the things that I heard from superintendents and that people were very concerned about and wanted to make sure that the control for a charter school was at the local level. So all charter schools, before a charter school can come about, it has to be approved by the local board of education. Right. So that pretty much, you know, that I think takes away a lot of the issues or the concerns of people about, you know, there being charter schools in every county. But the local school board has to okay a charter school. So there won't be charter schools in Marion, Nelson, or Washington County unless the local school board want that. And And like I said, they could do a collaborative agreement between another county to have some sort of special charter school, for that. I don't know what that reason would be, but that is possible. But again, a lot of the concern about charter schools is that there would be charter schools in every county, and that they would take funds away from the public school. Gary, that simply won't happen because, again, the local boards of education have to approve a charter school.
And are there stipulations as to what charter schools have to fulfill in order to be allowed?
One of the big debates we had, there was in the legislation it says that charter schools may require that all those attending would have to be, from free and reduced lunch or low-income students. But the reason we left may in there is because a community might want to do a charter school. They might want, we have a lot of autistic students now. There's a large population of autistic students. So a school district might want to do a charter school for just autistic students. And it wouldn't be very effective if you did that. If not only would they have to be autistic, but they'd have to be a free and reduced lunch student also. So we left kind of some leadway there where schools could do specialty type charter schools, but we left all the requirements when a school district does a charter school. All those requirements would be in the contract that they sign with the charter school. So we kind of left it up to the school districts. Like I said, the school district will decide if they want to have a charter school or not. And then the school districts would decide what that charter school is going to look like, what their mission is, who their students would be. So we left a lot of that control to the local school districts. Now, the only thing that we did do that really primarily in Kentucky right now, we have 28 priority schools, and a priority school is basically a failing school. Mm-hmm. So if there's a failing school in a county, and I think 17 of those priority schools are in Jefferson County, if your student is in a priority school in one of those counties, like I said, Jefferson County has 17 priority schools. If 60% of the parents sign a petition, they can petition the local board of education to turn that school into a priority school. But like I said, that's
into
just
a charter school.
And I'm sorry, yes. I'm glad you're listening to me. They can petition the local school board to turn that priority school, that failing school, into a charter school.
Okay. Now, also, there was a bill that had to do with some education reform as well, too, right?
That's right. Senate Bill 1. Senate Bill 1 is, we kind of describe it as Let Teachers Teach Act. It kind of peels the onion back, so to speak, of all these different things that we've put on teachers and from the state level and the federal level. This year, or actually last year in Congress, they passed ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. And it repeals No Child Left Behind and a lot of race to the top legislation that we've passed over the years. And it was a lot of burdens put on teachers to do paperwork and to gauge how programs were working. And so this repeals a lot of that, those burdens that we put on teachers. Mm-hmm. And simply we're trying to get back to just let teachers teach. And that was one of the big discussions we had this year. And of course, Senate Bill 1 also, over a period of years, will repeal Common Core. Mm-hmm. And most people have heard of the argument about Common Core. It was the core content that was adopted pretty much at the national level and then implemented here in Kentucky. And so Senate Bill 1, over the next several years, all those core contents will be reviewed by teachers and then a group at the Kentucky Board of Education and legislators to see if we want to keep those core content or replace them. So they will all be reviewed over the next several years. So after that review, they won't be Common Core, they'll be Kentucky Core contents. It'll be stuff, it'll be what we want. And primarily that function is left up to educators to decide that, but it will be reviewed by other panels. I think there's another panel at the Kentucky Board of Education, and there's another panel that's made up of legislators that will look at that and do final approval on that. And one of the big issues we had this year, and it caused some tension between the House and the Senate, there was a lot of additional mandates that were introduced to be implemented into the Department of Education and eventually down to the school level. So with all the changes we'd made to education this year with charter school legislation, House Bill 520 and Senate Bill 1, the education reform, we did not want to do a lot of mandates where we're mandating the Board of Education and schools to do. There was one to teach financial literacy. It was mandated. That's a great thing to do. But again, a lot of schools are already doing that, but we didn't want to continue to mandate things to, here with the Senate Bill 1, we're taking away a bunch of mandates and turn around and start piling the mandates back on. So we wanted to give these other things time to work and just like I said, not be adding more and more layers to that onion after we peeled some of them back.
Okay. Yeah, what were some of the other big?
And we passed Senate Bill 4, which is medical malpractice reform, and it basically sets up medical review panels for lawsuits, and mainly that was in lawsuits involving the medical profession or nursing homes. We had a lot of issues there that the nursing homes, their liability insurance had gone through the roof, and they were wanting some relief, and medical review panels have worked in other states, so we'll give that a try. I'm sure we're going to have some issues probably with that. We'll have unintended consequences, and we'll probably be back next year in the next session doing some adjustments to that, because that is a new concept in Kentucky. House Bill 330, the Yum Center, this big nice building we have in Louisville where the University of Louisville Cardinals play, and a lot of other events go on. The original financing for that is just the assumptions that the people who sold the bonds and did the TFS tax increment financing, all those things were overly optimistic and they didn't work out. So the Yum Center was in, I guess, danger of defaulting on their bonds. So we did go back and authorize to refinance the Yum Center over, I guess, we authorized it to be, I guess, the financing to be extended another 25 years, so it'd make it total the 35 years that will be financed over, because it's already been there 10 years. And we extended those bonds out another 25 years. I voted no on that bill, Gary, and primarily, I don't want to see it Yum Center default on their bonds, but the University of Louisville really got a sweetheart deal on that, and so I really wanted the University of Louisville to have more skin in the game on the repayment of those bonds, but the bill passed, and so that will all be worked out to where that's refinanced and be on stable ground where they do not default on their loans. Senate Bill 12, you heard a lot in the news about the University of Louisville board. It was the governor. If you remember, the governor replaced the old board and put in a new board, and it went to court, and court said they couldn't do that. So the old board was back, but the court said that the old board was not legally formed and really restricted what the old board could do. They couldn't even hire employees, and they needed to hire a new president. So Senate Bill 12 remove that old board and put a new board into place. And the CPE, they have a nominating committee, so that nominating committee, I think it was 13 people, gave the governor, I don't know how many names they gave him, but he could pick 13 out of the number of names that they gave him, and so a new board was created. That was a legally formed board. The old board, the board it has a racial mix that it is supposed to have, and there were no minorities serving on the U of L board, and it also had to have a political mix. And the board was not, there was no Republicans serving on the old board. So it was, like I said, it was an illegally formed board. So the new board is legally formed, and they're now functioning. So, and then Senate Bill 107, it dealt with all university boards. And one of the things that we found out through all this, if the governor appoints somebody to a board, if that person breaks the law or does something that they shouldn't do, the universities or the governor can remove them from that board. But if the board is illegally formed, say if the board doesn't have the proper number of minorities or the board doesn't have the right political mix, there was nothing in law that said how that would be dealt with. So Senate Bill 107 puts in play, it gives the universities the ability to remove people from a board if it's not properly structured correctly. Senate Bill 120 is judicial reform, and what Senate Bill 120, the biggest concept behind Senate Bill 120 is we have prisoners that are getting out of jail every day, and they go out into society and they really have no skills or no preparation to re-enter society, and they find themselves right back in prison because they go back to doing what got them sent to jail to start with. So Senate Bill 120 tries to deal with that, to make it easier for felons to return to society, helps them as far as some programs while they're still in prison, and makes it easier for them to get a job once they get out of prison. But it has a local flavor. Jailer Barry Brady was very instrumental in getting language in Senate Bill 120. I work with Barry Brady quite a bit on this, and what this bill is going to allow, if you have a inmate, say in the Marion Adjustment Center or Marion Detention Center, or in the Nelson County Jail, on the last 90 days of their sentence, if they're exhibited good behavior and qualify for the program, and an industry wants to hire that person, they could actually be released during the day from jail to go to work and then come back to jail at night. And while they were working for this industry, and previous bills have forbidden that from happening, but what this does, they would get a regular paycheck. Now, they wouldn't have access to all that money until they were released from jail, but we just felt like that was something that's very important when an inmate is released from jail. If they had enough money to be able to, rent an apartment and pay a deposit, and if they were successful at this job that they had while they were incarcerated, most likely that company would continue to employ them, so they'd have work, they'd have money where they could rent an apartment, and they would have a chance to make it as they move back into society, and not get caught up in that revolving door where they couldn't find a job, they didn't have any money, and they ended up going back to a life of crime and end up right back in jail. So that's Senate Bill 120. Let's see, House Bill 153 was a Bible literacy bill. It allows if a school decides they want to have a Bible literacy class, they can use the Bible as a textbook, and a lot of states are doing that, where they, it's a lot of historical data in the Bible, so it allows them to use that as a textbook. Senate Bill 10 was a AT&T bill. We had an AT&T bill a couple of years ago. It's really the telecommunications bill, but since AT&T is the biggest telecommunication company in Kentucky, it's been referred to as the AT&T bill. It basically rolls back all the regulations on the local phone carriers. There was legislation in effect for years. If you built a new house and you were 10 miles off the road, that the local phone company would have to run a phone line to you, and that was at quite a bit of expense to the phone companies. But with cellular technology now, they're trying to move away from that. So what Senate Bill 10 does is allow those telecommunication companies they're no longer required, if you build a new house, to run a phone line to you. And also in that bill, if you, which a lot of people are discontinuing their landlines. I think that it's 90 days. If you discontinue your landline, if you decide after 30 or 60 days, hey, I shouldn't have done that, I need to have it hooked back up, they're still required to hook you back up. But after 90 days, they can make the decision whether or not to hook you back up. And what this is supposed to do is supposed to spur investment in the wireless technology across the state, where that's what AT&T has been telling people, hey, let us not spend so much money maintaining this wire network. Let us move into this wireless network. That's the future of telecommunications in Kentucky, is this wireless network. And everybody's screaming for faster internet service and wireless service. So that's what Senate Bill 10 does. It allows them to shift from a wire technology that we've traditionally known to a wireless technology. Now, again, I voted no on that bill. And no disrespect to AT&T, I think AT&T is doing what they need to do. I think AT&T is spending a lot of money to upgrade their wireless technology, but AT&T is not the only landline company in the state. And the more rural counties that I have, AT&T is not a player. So we have, in Marion and Casey County, it's Windstream. Mm-hmm. And I just have some real concerns about what Senate Bill 10 allowed, especially in rural Kentucky. So I had some concerns, and I voted no. The bill still passed, but I did have some concerns about it.
Did the bill stipulate any percentage of monies they had to invest in wireless?
No, it just allowed them to start, divesting of their wireless network. I mean, their wired network, and start investing heavily in their.
With the assumption that they would invest
in a lot of fiber optic. I know this past year in Nelson County, I saw AT&T spent a lot of money in Nelson County putting out fiber optic lines, and which are still necessary for. For a good wireless connection, you still have to have some fiber optics. Mm-hmm. So it's we're at that fork in the road where we're starting to go down a road where in the future we'll look back, it'd be like the old rotary phone. We'll look back and say, well, that's old technology, and probably when we see a landline somewhere, we'll, next 15, 20 years, we probably won't even have landlines. Mm-hmm. So that's the route we're going.
All right. So there are some of the bills that passed for this legislative session.
That's just a short list.
Yeah, exactly.
We could
a whole lot of stuff going on. And if you're interested in learning more about some of the different bills, they can go to the legislative resource.
Right. Just Google Kentucky LRC, Legislative Research Commission, and you can go to the page and find the 2017 legislative record, and you can go on that and find all this legislation.
Since there are 167 of them.
167 of them. And feel free to call me here at home, and Gary will put that phone number on the screen and be glad to talk to you about any of these bills. And we're starting to work now on next session. I had people call me during session this year that had ideas for legislation. I said, I'm already working on, ideas for next session. So that's, now's the time to call for next session.